King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard L.W. album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this new King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album. These guys are an Australia-based psychedelic rock band, and if you are a fan of psychedelic rock or heavy psych or any of the subgenres that these guys have fit into over the last 15 years, you either A, eat up everything that they put out, which is a lot, or B, you got a lot of homework to do. And it's been a wild ride over the years. I mean, they sort of underwhelmed me at first with albums like Quarters and 12 Bar Brews, but won me over with albums like I'm in Your Mind Fuzz and Paper Mache Dream Balloon. There's also the never-ending Nonagon Infinity. Oh, by the way, in 2017, they saw fit to drop 5 albums, 4 of them being pretty good. Still not a big Sketches of Brunswick East guy. But over the years, the selling point with King Gizzard is just how much they experiment, how fearless they are, and how often they switch up their sound. In 2019, they released 2 albums once again, this time taking on apparently some sort of robo-funk that is also eco-friendly on Fishing for Fishies, as well as conquering, thrash metal on this bad boy, Infest the Rat's Nest. Now, 2020 showed them release K.G., which was a decent album. It was totally fine, but it was also the first time in a while where I personally thought with King Gizzard that some of it just seemed, like, I don't know, a little directionless. I felt like they need a little jolt to their system, but here we are. Less than a year later, only a couple of months later, actually, with the companion piece, L.W. I should have saw this one coming. And honestly, from the sound of the tracks that they were releasing up to this L.W. release, I already thought that the band was on a little bit more of a tear. They sounded like they were really focused. But let me tell you, this album exceeded a lot of my expectations. This album starts off with If Not Now, Then When? It is a chaotic and wild intro. No, this sounds completely out of control. Very heady, very hectic. But it also burns out super fast. It sounds like it got way too ahead of itself and goes back to the sort of robo-funk of Fishing for Fishies. It's groovy and incredibly bizarre, but totally King Gizzard. It's an odd one, and one that I genuinely didn't know how to place at first, but I think it's actually a blast. Then we have One, and honestly, I didn't know what to think about this one at first. I wasn't that into its whimsical intro, but as this track rolls on, it is sharp as a tack. In a lot of ways, this kind of sounds almost back to basics for King Gizzard. It's hypnotic and so simple, and I love the wild vocals that we get here. It's just, to me, a perfect example of what King Gizzard can do without trying overly hard and just being themselves. And Pleura, I think, honestly, is the best track here. I love the tense, rigid groove and the tight playing. It also brings in the completely bizarre and tongue-in-cheek lyrics that I've always adored from K.G. It's probably the most obvious and most straightforward track here, but I'm all for it. Supreme Ascendancy is another story entirely. This one is a lot more on the whimsical side, but it's super fluid and super spiritual, and put that alongside the sort of microtonal sound that they were going for here. And yeah, if you were into albums like Flying Microtonal Banana, I think you'd be really into this. But I love how tense these vocals are. This whole track just is so over the top. It also has this weird sense of mystery to it. I want to dive a lot deeper. I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of complaints here. There are some moments that do make me worry. I don't know, that they're kind of running out of ideas. Like East-West Link has a lot of the same elements as a lot of the tracks here. From a distance, you might even say that it sounds like it. And I don't mind the wilder attitude, and it's a little bit more fast-paced. That's cool. But for me, nothing about this track really adds up. There's just a lot of other tracks that do this sound, but so much more interesting. Oh, and I really want to like Alteraxia. This just sounds completely out of place, though. With what we've heard on the rest of this album, this kind of sounds like King Gizzard just accidentally put this on the wrong record. And you know what? The riff that starts off this track is actually pretty decent. And the hypnotizing chorus is pretty cool. But these verses are putting me to sleep. My least favorite track here. But let me tell you, the rest of this album is a refreshing jolt of energy for King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and did a lot of things that I didn't expect. Static electricity brings in almost like this mysticism to it. There also seems to be just an abundance of really interesting genres on display here, especially as far as the band's influences go, which once again, sounds a lot like what they were doing on Flying Microtonal Banana. But it picks up smoothly. I actually really love the vocals on this track, and once again, the mysticism is real. And I'll be honest, at first, I wasn't feeling this. It's on the longer side of tracks here. But I just can't deny the genuine grooves here, as well as the low-key funk in the second half. See Me is a real late album treat, one of my favorite tracks here. It's not like a lot of the material on here, and it's just a really great reminder that constant guitar solos and oddball lyrics aren't all that King Gizzard have to offer. Because this is a really retro, mesmerizing psych rock tune that just makes me want to dig deeper. It's heady, it's wild, really well written, and just very exciting for me. And this album's finale, K.G.L.W, I almost just wrote off entirely. This, to me, seems like next level, and maybe even a sign of things to come. Obviously, the riff here shares a lot of the same roots and sounds as the instrumental intro from K.G., but the rest of this track really shows King Gizzard diving into like heavy psych and even stoner metal. And at this point, those are like the only two sort of heavy genres that they haven't touched down on. I personally wasn't expecting anything like this, but if this is a sign of things to come, count me in, because it gets downright twisted and horrifying by the end. I mean, in a track that's over 8 minutes long, I was worried going into this, but called me pleasantly surprised. And you know what? Call me surprised about this album. Going into KG last year, I really felt like King Gizzard were fine for the moment, but really needed a refresher. But these tracks here, this companion piece of this double album, actually did a lot of things that I didn't expect. It makes me want to dive much deeper into the lore and the sound of these tracks. This album is tense, it is whimsical, it is heady, but it reminds you in a lot of ways of where King Gizzard came from, and more importantly, where they may be going next. And most surprisingly, it makes me look at KG, this album's companion piece, a whole lot differently. It makes me enjoy it a lot more. This is really a nice surprise, so to speak. I'm feeling a light 8 on this bad boy, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.